If you compare, well, the songwriting that you do for Interpol, compared to, for example, this album, is there one? Well, is it different? Different?
Well, it's incredibly fundamentally different if you're talking about songwriting, because Daniel is essentially the songwriter of Interpol.
Well, I was thinking you also wrote the songs together with every.
No, I mean, early on there was a little bit of that, and then we kind of moved into where it's, you know, since Hands Away was a song that I wrote on our first record, and then every song since then has been a Daniel song that we all kind of.
And I was thinking that you all wrote together, and then.
It really, you know, and even the fourth record in particular was really Daniel and Carlos, and then I just put on vocals after those songs were kind of constructed. But yeah, the way that we sort of settled into a writing pattern as a band is that the original chord progression would come from Daniel, and then we would all kind of build up that song together in a total collaborative with everybody kind of impacting everybody else's parts. But the original kind of core of like verse, chorus, and bridge would be coming from progressions that Daniel would introduce. So that's a fairly fundamental difference between what you hear in Interpol versus what you hear here, which is these are my chord progressions. I'm just sort of, the similarity is that I do the vocal treatments in both things.
But is it for you, did you feel bounded by the way of working within Interpol? Do you really need now to write these songs?
Well, no, I think I always needed to write songs, which is why I had Songs Collecting for 10 years before that solo record came out. Wonderful collective, and it's an opportunity for me to be inspired by other musicians that I want to work with. I think there's probably nothing so unbound as working alone where you can do everything, but I wouldn't look at being a collaborator on other people's music as being kind of making me feel bound. It's an opportunity to make music with other people, which is really special in its own right, and then this now gives me the outlet to do it from the ground up, how I might see, you know.
Another song, Paid for That, changed by Folk Implosion when I was 17. And you also mentioned the Boo Radleys. You were 17, so it was 1995. Can you describe this? Well, where were you when this had this impact on you?
Yeah, senior year of high school in Mexico, and that was kind of the Discovery of the Kid soundtrack. So all the work that Lou Barlow did on that soundtrack really became like a soundtrack of my life for that year. But it was at the same, I discovered Slint. I think actually now that I think of it, I discovered Slint from the same soundtrack. That was just a really, really, I don't know, it was music that really spoke to me. It was also John Frusciante at the same time I sort of started getting into his solo work. Although maybe John Frusciante was the next year when I was at college. Yeah, John Frusciante was the next year at college. But that was just sort of became, you know, there was other music I'd been listening to, and then when I discovered that kind of like home recording sounding, sort of eerie, and then I went into Sebadoh and Centradoh and his other work, and I just really, a lot of my solo stuff originally was going to be kind of more home recorded and more 4-track sounding, and then because I mixed my first record with Peter Cadis, things went from my original idea, which was really directly inspired by Lou Barlow's kind of home recorded sound. I sort of lost that a little bit when I made my first record and mixed it with Peter Cadis, because we kind of made everything so much more hi-fi than my original vision had been. But I then realized that what we made together was much more exciting in so many ways that I kind of favored that method and sort of let go of that idea of kind of lo-fi 4-track recording. But yeah, I was really, and I did a lot of 4-track recording in college that was sort of directly inspired by that Lou Barlow kind of vibe. And I mean, I still may release some demos that I've done for this most recent record, and I think that is more indicative of that kind of murky, atmospheric, there's just something that you can't reproduce in the studio that you can create when you work at home in your bedroom. And I think I kind of got fixated by that aesthetic by listening to that kind of Folk Implosion stuff.
So for you, do you like making references to your, well, certain things that you've been or that you've done in your own lyrics?
I don't know if I've ever done it before that one line. And Yeah, I don't know how much else I do that.
So this is special for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so, in that case, yeah.
Okay. Let me see. There's another question, my last question, over my shoulder. I was a little bit intrigued by the lyrics. It's a line, over my shoulder, there's a heart that suffers deep. Is it your own heart or someone else's heart, or from the perspective of who's singing?
That's a good question. I mean, I want to say both, but I probably meant my own heart with that line.
Can you explain, or is it too personal?
No, I think that there's a way in which, yeah, I think up until this point in my life, there was things that burdened me that no longer burden me. So maybe that's what it pertains to.
Can you explain one thing that burdened you until now? Or?
I feel like I've talked about it a lot. I think it's also maybe just symptomatic of being a human being, that at a certain point, things that maybe were more dramatic to you in your adolescence, you do, it's I guess a bit like becoming calloused, but it's also just wisdom, where certain things don't wear down on you quite as much. They don't frustrate you quite as much if you're not understood, or if you're not really, I could use that example in my case. If you're sort of completely misunderstood, that can be very frustrating as a young person. And then as you get older, you say like, well, why the fuck do I care if people understand me anyway? And why was I ever looking for validation or, approval? It's not really, that's not really the key to everything, whereas at one point you may have thought it was.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.